Now back to us, Julian. We're going to be watching 8-cast versus Depths. So let's go ahead and take a look first at Antonio Zanutto's deck. He was our February Modern champion. He's a judge, but he takes some time out to play occasionally. Showed up here in February and won the event. So looking to build a real case for an entry into the championship at the end of the year. So 8-cast, here we go.
This deck is pretty insane, and when I say that, I really mean it because
that is an accurate statement. I'm with you.
This deck feels like playing Vintage. You have so many extra ways to just like randomly draw 2 cards for 1 mana. You basically that's what the deck is named after, right? The 8-cast creatures or spells. But what I wanted to say about the deck in the first place is this deck in the hands of Jordan Meyer has, I think it was last month, won 3 Sunday Legacy challenges in Magic Online. And everybody knows how hard it is to win those. And he literally won 3 in a row. And I think that has never, ever been done before. And it heavily contributed to the deck being super hated out of the format for the following PTQ. it's kind of crazy. But yeah, this is the kind of deck, if you let this deck do what it wants to do, if you sit there and you think, oh, maybe I got some hate here, some hate there, you're not going to get there. You're not going to get there. You need really dedicated hate because this deck is going to throw down a bunch of cheap artifacts, then refuel really quickly with Thought Monitor and Thoughtcasts. And then on top of that, it has like many different ways to finish the game. It has Urza Saga, which is a great way to finish the game against controllish decks. It
Definitely
has
is. All right, so let me interrupt you there because the players are waiting for us. Let's go ahead and quickly throw up Chris Bergeson's Depths deck, and then we'll get down to the table. So you can see here Green-White Depths, similar to what we saw last round from JJ Gerlach. I take that back. It's not quite as much Mavericky. This one is more the green-based Depths without, we're not splashing Dark Depths. This time is kind of our main focus this time. Now the Reliquary, kind of the similarity between the two versions. Okay, down to the table. Let's get it going. Sorry. Now you can go ahead and continue talking about 8-cast, whatever you want.
It's actually going to be much better if we see it in action as opposed to me just explaining it. Because this deck, especially the first times, are so explosive.
Here we go.
It's like, okay, I got these. I'm going to draw 2. But see, this is what I mean by Vintage. You already have your Mox, you draw your almost like Ancestor Recall. And then, you know, whatever happens, like you can draw a bunch of extra cards of the Baubles. You can maybe
Here we go.
I just drew 4 cards on the first turn. Yeah, easy game. This is Legacy, right? This is how they do it.
And 2 more waiting. Those are Urza's Baubles. If you're a Modern fan and used to Mishra's Bauble, Urza's Bauble is the same mechanic, except instead of looking at the top card of a deck, you look at a random card of the opponent's hand, but it is a slow trip where you will draw on the next upkeep. So here we go, Chris. Display his cards and look.
Did Chris choose the I mean, I guess.
It's random, whatever. Chris randomly displayed the Swords of Plowshares to Antonio. That's a good card to know about. And Antonio will pick up another fresh card. But is his turn over with, or is there more to come?
I could see. Actually, no. Now that he's cracked this, maybe he just wanted to get some information on what Chris has going for, in case he wants to like play something else. But I would guess he's just gonna pass his turn. Pass the turn. No, he's only thinking about the second Bauble, maybe.
Yeah. So often in Modern, we see the Baubles cracked at the end of the opponent's turn to see what they're going to draw the next turn. Here we see it cracked right away. The existence of Force of Will in the deck may contribute to that, as having the cards during the opponent's turn is actually valuable here. So Chris, I mean, facing an opponent who just played 5 cards plus a land on turn 1, if you just play land drop go, I mean, it feels kind of bad.
Yeah, and there's also like this extra headache of if Antonio, for example, gets into Sai, which is the creature that lets you get extra tokens. So you can have a ton of flyers to jump block Mar at large if that ever becomes a thing. You can get through them with Sachieri Step because I think Sai makes blue. I would need to double check. Artifact Spell Creator Color is top that token. Okay, so you can even block through Sachieri Step with those. So that's that kind of a huge headache for you.
Okay, here we go. Chalice on 1 after a Wasteland takes out to see the Synod. Can we ask the table spotter to, even though it's very minimal at this point, can we get Chris's graveyard on the screen? Because it may be relevant later on.
There's Yavimaya. That's probably, unless we have Mox Diamond, pass of the turn, I would guess. Yeah. Tony gets another turn. You know what? I just noticed that he is they kept those two baubles in play. And one reason to do that, yeah, for example, is the Thoughtcast. Another reason to do it is because they kind of serve as mana accelerators for Kappa Cannoneer.
Right. Yeah, so Kappa Cannoneer, kind of the new printing that really brought this deck to the forefront.
And he's
Not technically, yeah, it's not technically Affinity, as it has Improvise, which is very similar to Infinity, although you do have to tap the artifacts to get the mana source from them. Ward 4, printed as a 4/4, actually a 5/5, as it counts itself when it comes into play. So whenever an artifact, including itself, comes into play, it gets a +1/+1 counter and can't be blocked this turn. So here you go, Chris. Something else to deal with. Ward 4, good luck.
Yeah, this is the ultimate clock that has been put on Chris now. Chris needs to super accelerate into making Marriott Large and hope to get there. While Antonio is going to get, I would guess, ideal case scenarios, Antonio just gets in there twice to take the game, assuming he's going to draw a bunch more artifacts to make the Kappa Cannoneer a lot bigger. And on top of all of that, Chris also has to play through all the other cards that are in Antonio's hand, and there's probably a chance that there's going to be a Force of Will or something, considering how many cards he has drawn. So what are we trying to... Okay, we're gonna... Step 1, let's try to get rid of the Chalice here.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, Chalice is not the thing that's killing us.
No, but, well, it's certainly a thing that's problematic, though. And Antonio may have a Force of Will in the hand, is giving this some thought, and this almost doesn't even seem fair. And that's really the way these decks work sometimes. So much stuff versus Chris just trying to keep up, really. And Antonio is just like, well, all right, yeah, you're like you're saying, you had to deal with this peripheral card, but that's not the problem. The problem is this Cannoneer that's gigantic and growing.
Yeah, and I guess by the end of... There's even a scenario where you play another Kappa Cannoneer. Because for a second it looked like he was counting artifacts again, but maybe that's just for Thought Monitor, which is another great card because it also gets to block your Marriott Large and draw you 2 cards.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll start with a Thoughtcast. 1 mana, draw 2 to kick the turn off.
Thoughts of an Ancestor Recall. I play 4 of those in my deck.
Jeez. And wise of Antonio to tap the Mox in case he decides to play another one. You want to have already used the first one. Here's an Urza Saga. Why not? Another super powerful card.
That can also be quite annoying because eventually, if that's going to find Aether Spellbomb, that's going to be able to bounce their Marriott Large if it ever comes down. Technically, it could also find something like, a Shadowspear to gain a lot of life. Oh, it's Shadowspear in hand. Sweet. Oh, man.
Yeah, once you killed my Chalice of the Void, sure, I'll start playing my 1 mana artifacts. Yeah, everything going well for Antonio here, and a replacement Chalice.
There.
Oh, this is tough. I myself get aggravated when players have something like Chalice on 1 and then also 1 drops in the same deck and it works out.
It's going to be a Thought Monitor as well. I bet there's going to be a Thought Monitor coming down. Yes.
Oh,
God, dude, this is vintage and legacy. I can't put it any other way.
I mean, I realize we're having a good time here, as well as Antonio enjoying himself and at Chris's expense. As this is most certainly looking ugly, and this is going to be an attack for at least 8.
And this is also the reason why everybody, at least in Magic Online recently, has been stocking up on Meltdown, Energy Flux, what have you. Because you really need very, very powerful and dedicated hate. Usually, in the past, you don't really see a lot of dedicated artifact hate in sideboards. It's more like, oh, this can also target artifacts. Whereas now people have like Seeds of Innocence, what have you, like all these destroy all artifact things. Because that's also conveniently another way to get rid of Kappa Cannoneer. Because you get around the board.
Okay, so 8 damage comes across. Antonio picks up 2 cards from the Urza plus Mishra's Bauble.
How many spells has Chris played this game as opposed to Antonio? I think Antonio played like 15 or 20 spells by now, whereas Chris played like...
I think it's 1.
That's so unfair.
He played a Wasteland and he played a Prismatic Ending. I don't know if there was anything else.
It also doesn't look like he's got anything in hand that would make a difference.
Well, there's also a Chalice on the board again. Oh. Yeah, Antonio's having all the fun here. Trying to secure a top 8 berth, potentially, win his second Nerd Rage event of the year. That would be quite an achievement, and we're only in April, just barely as it is.
Yeah. One thing is, if you're playing a fair deck, you're not really coming to the board to win game 1 against 8cast.
Right.
I mean, you can do it. It's not like 8cast is going to run away with every single game 1. It's not like a Dredge equivalent or something. But especially if it's on the play and has like this explosive for start, it's a fair deck barely can keep up with it. That's just like, no, oh, I'm gonna play a creature, I'm gonna attack with my creature next turn. That's really not gonna do it.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. This is a matchup that needs to be won off of sideboard cards, and that's just something that if you get paired with it, you know that going in. Same, for example, some decks playing against, like, I don't know, Goblins versus Storm or things like that. You know you're not winning game one very often. Kappa Cannoneer up to a 9/9, joined by the Thought Monitor at 2/2. So
they're gonna go Kappa Cannoneer even further now that the construct is gonna come into play.
And that will looks like it'll do it.
That's 12. I guess we're gonna try the Swords to Plowshares or something like, or the crop rotation, and yeah.
Yeah, okay. Chalice check there. Antonio's like, that's countered. And that is a very legal play. There's nothing shady about trying to slip a spell through your opponent's Chalice. It's their responsibility to remember. Antonio's on top of it. Crop rotation countered. And we're off to game 2. So let's go ahead and look at Chris's sideboard, because that's the more relevant one in most cases. Whoever's playing against the deck, they did the crazy stuff in game 1.
Yeah, and here we see, right, Seas of Innocence, a card that hasn't really been part of Legacy in almost forever.
Yeah.
Or ever. Yeah, really ever. And this is just like the kind of hate that you need. And even if you have that, you still got to execute your own game plan. Fortunately for Naya Depths, that's something that they can do very well. And they don't really hurt themselves too much with Seeds of Innocence. But you really need that kind of hate.
Right. So Seeds of Innocence, with a quote from Joel Rael, I believe this card is from Mirage, which might be older than a decent number of our viewers right now. And then also additionally, there's also a Collector's Oof in the sideboard, which can be fetched by Green Sun Zenith. So there are some prospects here for Chris. There's an Urza Saga in the sideboard. That's interesting. I guess that's to tutor. I don't know. That's not something I've come across before. What do you think about that?
Yes, it's just like another grindy card that you can slide in to get off, say, Elvish Reclaimer in matchups where you think it's gonna go long. I'm not sure it's gonna come in here. I would guess you might bring in Pyroblasts. You might bring in maybe Prismatic Endings if you feel you have enough room, just to try to get rid of the Chalices. And of course, the Seas of Innocence. Blast Zone could also do some damage. It's probably worth bringing in, especially if you have some stuff to take out that you don't really need. But overall, it's so much is gonna like depend on the Seeds of Innocence resolving in the first place, and that's just like the extra big step, because usually, let me check the blue-white affinity. Yeah, they have 4 Force of Negation in the sideboard. So
let's go ahead and switch over to Antonio. Go ahead and keep talking, but let's go ahead and bring the other one back up.
So what I recognize is that this main deck is a carbon copy, perfect copy of Jordan Meyer's 8-cast Decklist guide. The sideboard is quite different, but that doesn't surprise me too much considering how much the metagame has adapted to it. And one of the most important things that Jordan said about the deck was, in so many matchups, you're actually bringing in extra copies of Force, literally just because of the hate. You would think in a matchup like Delver, right? Maybe you take out some Forces or something. No, you bring in extra copies of Forces. And while this isn't Delver, the idea is still somewhat the same. The opponent has a couple of cards, and really only have a couple of cards that heavily matter. And those are the cards you want to fight over. Let them do whatever else they want. We already talked about how Sai is really good against the Marrowed Large game plan. Fight over Seeds of Innocence and win the match from there. And that's your game plan.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's see if Antonio's able to pull that off and advance to top 8, or if Chris Bergeson has something else to say about it. Players are shuffling up, getting ready for game 2 here. And, well, if Antonio is able to mop this one up real quick, we do have a backup match. And if Chris is able to drag this one out, well, we'll just see how long it takes. Players are welcome to use the entire round if they like, but nobody's looking for a draw in the last round of the Swiss, that's for sure.
So, yeah, I guess if anybody was looking for a draw, they would already have gotten it.
They would have already drawn, yeah. So we are in the last round of the Swiss. The players at the top tables have drawn into the top 8. I believe we did have 2 tables of players at 501 agree to shake hands and move into the top 8. And then we got some players contesting, battling it out, seeing who can join them.
So what's the ideal opening for Naya Depths here, right? You probably want something like Mox Diamond to accelerate. Something that you can do, but Naya Depths, of course, doesn't have that, I guess. So that's like dropping a Chalice of Zero is always like a big thing, but they don't really have that.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say any sort of accelerating to enable having 3 mana on turn 2. So a Green Sun for Collector Oof and Seeds of Innocence are both strong. Obviously, Seeds you're probably not going to play on turn 2, but Green Sun for Collector Oof would be pretty exciting as it even shuts down stuff like Seed of the Synod. Chris is going to mulligan. What's that?
Mox land, Collector Oof, Synod for
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, that's a big card disadvantage to play Mox and shut it off. But you're right; that would probably be worthwhile anyway.
Would actually be the most insane card. You're setting yourself back to the Stone Age, but your opponent is being set back to, I don't even know what happened before the Stone Age, dinosaur time.
Yeah,
That's not
okay.
how I call it.
No, I think you're right. I believe you are correct. Yep. Yep. So both players taking a mulligan here. And we'll see what geological era Chris can send Antonio into. Antonio's trying to play in the future, I think, because I don't think with all these drops and all these artifacts and machine tokens and everything, he's not looking to play present day Magic. I'm trying to keep up with you here. I'm not doing a good job, but that was excellent.
Oh man, yeah, I'm just like so excited to see whenever somebody like shuffles up Mono Blue 8cast. I've been playing it all week, and for much as I've been destroyed by the hate, you always get the feeling that the hate is gonna go somewhat away, because it's also not like anybody's talking about a banning when it comes to 8cast. So I think the deck is gonna be here to stay, and whenever something comes on the scene, hits big time, then gets hated out heavily, then usually after a couple of weeks, the hate dies down again, and I'm not in love with many decks, but this deck, it could be one of those decks.
It's pretty neat. I spent a couple hours watching one of my friends learn how to play it maybe a month ago. That was the blue-white version, I think. And mostly all I've seen on camera, on coverage, is the mono blue version. So I guess maybe that one is emerged as the Primo version, but we'll see. Chris with a fetch and a Savannah, both players on 6 cards. Yeah, what I'm looking for here from Chris is a mana accelerator of any kind.
You definitely want that. Let's see. Okay, we got this guy.
That's fine.
The lack of enthusiasm from both you and me tells all the story.
Yeah.
Because, like, what are you really gonna do next turn?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe we have Collector Oof in hand. I haven't really seen it yet, but maybe that's one way to get there. Antonio, meanwhile, is running all the calculations in his head. Like, he's already, like, in his head, he's already drawn like 6 cards, and he's gonna drop Kappa Cannoneer on the first turn, pass, and yeah, maybe just like get there on turn 2.
All right, turn 1 Urza Saga go is what Antonio comes up with. All right.
Okay,
Chris?
this is almost like a very telegraphed Ancient Tomb on turn 2 then.
So
You wouldn't really do that unless you have turn. I guess there's a world where you have like a bunch of Moxen, but in that case, you would have probably played something else in the first one as well. But this is also like one of the most powerful fair things that you can do. You run out the turn 1 Saga. You get your turn 2 construct, turn 3 construct, and put the spear on it, Shadowspear, and just you go to town. Ooh, but we have Wasteland. Ooh, I think I would have Wastelanded this straight away just because there's yeah, and now this happens.
Yeah, that can be I mean, any sort of acceleration free mana here.
I think if you have Seeds of Innocence, for example.
Well, we couldn't have Wastelanded anyway, right? Or was that
Why not?
That is a Wasteland. I'm sorry. I was thinking you meant tutor up a Wasteland. I confused myself again because of course Chris isn't playing any Wasteland artwork I've ever seen, because nobody does things like that. All right, so
I was gonna say it still makes sense to go after the tomb if you feel like you can somehow handle the pressure that's gonna come out of the Urza Saga, especially if Antonio doesn't have a way to. Well, actually, Antonio is not gonna have a way to use it again. Next turn it's gonna go away, and if you feel like your fair game plan is strong enough, then that's not too bad, really.
Yeah. Okay. So Saga will float a mana, and then go with searching.
It's gonna depend, right? You got your Aether Spellbomb, you got your Shadowspear. You could find a Mox if you want to like try to. Yeah, I think he's put a Mox to the front. It's going to depend on how much artifacts he's going to have, of course. Let's see. Not the best spot to be in right now. Those Reclaimers are going to grow rather quickly. And we haven't done anything explosive yet. for all the glory and the praise I've given to the deck over the last 10 minutes, we haven't seen too much of it in the second game now.
Well, its opening 2 lands are in the graveyard, so I mean it's hard to get too far. There's a Pithing Needle comes in, names Elvish Reclaimer. So those creatures now become attackers. They're 1/2s at the moment. I believe there are 2 land in the graveyard. So you're checking out the altar on a Savannah.
Okay, we have a land. That's a good start. What are we going to cast for 1 here? Oh, could be an Emry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Emry.
Why would you assume that he's going to cast something for 1 just because he's tapping 1 mana? This is a 3-drop for 1 mana.
This is the deck if you want to cheat on mana left and right. It's just
Chris is like, okay.
Mana, easy game.
So Swords of Plowshares takes that out immediately.
Imagine if you could Swords of Plowshares cards from the stack. Like, oh, sweet.
All right, so the mill there was Force of Will, Otawara, I think, See the Synod, and Chalice of the Void.
Oh, and there's a Knight going to come down.
Yeah, well, Knight will work pretty well with that.
Oh, you know what? We also have a Synod. Yeah, we can send for a Collector Oof and basically take out the land and a ton of other cards that way.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. No attacking anymore as that construct is now a 3/3, but certainly...
I guess he could still attack. Oh, no, we don't have another land in the graveyard.
Right.
Yeah. This is so sweet.
We can see that the Pyroblast did come in. And there is Collector Oof. And now Antonio is going to have a harder time, which is honestly what's supposed to happen. These decks that are so hard to deal with in game 1, they get slowed down by sideboard cards, and then they have to, earn it. And that's what we're going to see here as Collector Oof is going to shut down all of Antonio's artifact abilities, including Seed of the Synod's ability to tap for mana. Construct can still attack or block.
One, by the way.
Ooh, well, that's
still nothing going on. Like we play out all of our stuff just to grow our 1 construct that we have, and then we have to figure out whether we need to turn it sideways or sit back. Actually, I'm looking at the deck list from Antonio right now. Does Antonio have? Yeah, he's got 2 Dismember, which probably came in considering that Oof is a pretty common sideboard card. So there's 2 Dismember, and you got Otawara, but you need... Actually, before we do anything, we need mana.
We need a mana, right. I mean, Dismember still, even on the cheap mode, Dismember still costs 1, and Antonio doesn't have it.
We just got this 5/5, or how big is it? 2, 4, 5? Yeah, we got this 5/5, and we're going to turn it sideways a couple of times and hope that the opponent doesn't win the race. I mean, Chris is down. Is it 14 now? Oh, well, scratch that.
Yeah, it's tough to win a race with no mana against a 2020.
Yeah, I think at this point, if you could stack out, like if you could put the perfect card on top, there's nothing you can do here.
All right, so 3 damage comes across.
I think he's just going to scoop. There's just like nothing.
Yeah.
So you got 2 islands and 2 Otawaras that still produce mana. And I guess Urza Saga.
There's a Saga Ancient Tomb. There's things that make mana, but not as much that makes colored mana. And like you were pointing out, Psi tokens are effective blockers, but then Psi does cost mana. Tokens aren't free, and Antonio is off to game 3. So we are going to see a game 3. Antonio on the play this time. We saw what happened when Antonio started last in game 1. Both players took a mulligan this game, and Antonio then, Chris basically mulliganed into a card that turned Antonio's entire deck into a mulligan as Collective shut off the works. What do you think? Going first is... what do we think of Antonio's chances here against these sideboard cards? I mean, still pretty reasonable, right?
Yeah, the one big problem is if you're going second in the 3rd game, your sideboard cards, unless you have an insane Mox draw like we talked about earlier, right? Your sideboard cards are really going to become a thing in turn like 3, if you're super lucky, turn 2. But I'm not sure that's going to be fast enough, especially since you also have to find basically that scenario where the opponent also doesn't have Force of Will, which is of course not something you have any kind of like power over, but it's a very specific scenario for depth where you win the third game. And I guess part of that is you just hope that Antonio doesn't have another big opener like he did in the first game, because the first game, that was something else, man.
Yeah, that was. I mean, he played 10 mana Thoughtcast on the first turn. That doesn't seem right. All right, so Antonio does have a player slide because he did win the event a couple months ago. So let's go ahead and pop that up. You can learn more about him. You see him there with holding the Hardened Scales, which was the deck that he was victorious with back in February. See some of his. He's a judge from Brazil, 3-time Pro Tour competitor, and did win the RNG 10K in Milwaukee back in February.
Did swim in each ocean. Oh, that's something. Does he count like Arctic oceans and stuff?
I don't know. That makes it tough. That's a cool bucket list, though. Visit each continent. Yeah, I mean, that's not many people have been to all 7. I'm sure there's a fair number of people.
How many continents have you been to?
Let's see. North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia. 5, I guess.
Yeah, it's same for me. I'm still missing Australia and South America.
Okay, yeah. So I've been to Australia, but I have not been to. Well, wait, aren't there 7? Hold on, you're missing Australia.
Africa, probably.
There's. Okay, now we're going back to like elementary school. There are 7, right?
Well, it depends on which part of the world you're in, but I think for us it's 7. Yeah.
Okay.
People count continents differently. I know some people count North and South America as the same continent. Like, it's basically contested enough that if you ever posted there's 7 continents on Reddit, somebody would be like, actually, you know.
Okay, well, I wasn't aware that the number of continents was in dispute, but there you go. You learn something every day. Anyway, I believe I've been to 5. I have not been to Africa or Antarctica, but I think I've been to the rest.
So you hit me up if you ever want to go on a safari in East Africa.
I will definitely do that because I know you're the man to go to. All right, players are presented. Yeah, if anyone else that's watching is like, I want to go to safari in Africa, you see there on the screen at it's Julian23. There you go.
Technically not my work account, but I've actually sold safaris.
You'll figure it out.
So yeah, we'll work it out.
Yeah.
Does NRC get some kind of commission?
You know what? We don't even need one. It would be good enough just for the amusement factor if it actually happened. All right, Antonio Zanutto on the play. Is the 7 good enough?
This is the moment where you're Chris. You just like hope Antonio puts 1 land to the table again and passes the turn. You're just so scared of what happens on the other side of the board.
All right, Chris is going to take them all again. Probably disappointed that Antonio kept, as this mono blue cast deck is a deck that there's going to be some awkward draws. Anything this explosive is going to have some awkward hands that have to be mulliganed. This is not one of them. But Chris is going to look for, I'm going to assume, Green Sun Zenith or Seeds of Innocence. Those are really the trump cards that he's got available to him.
Yeah, and I can almost not imagine any kind of game where you're going to win on the draw without seeing any of those 3 cards.
Yeah. And like you were saying, it might be too slow on turn 3 for Collector Oof to actually make a difference. But Seeds of Innocence will work all game long, assuming it resolves, which is no guarantee.
What is this going to be? We got Knight, we got a bunch of lands. It looks like a keep, and we're going to send something back.
All right.
I think there's a Seeds of Innocence hand. Okay, we got a Seeds. That's a start.
Yeah, most definitely.
2 mana Chalice.
It is not going to be a turn 2 Seeds, that's for sure, even if Chris wanted it as well. I suppose you get Moxed out, but that's also inefficient. And Wasteland takes out Ancient Tomb.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. That's basically what you want to see.
Yeah. I mean, there certainly are worlds where Antonio would keep Ancient Tomb, Chalice on 1, and then not have much else to do. But here's an Urza Saga.
Somehow that Urza Saga feels a lot less confident than the one in the first game. I don't know. Maybe Antonio is just like gonna slow roll it, and he's gonna have another Ancient Tomb, and he was just like showboating, not showboating, Hollywooding.
All right. Well, Chris has got some thought putting into this turn, which is interesting since his 1-drops are shut off. It's just what land to play.
Okay.
Right. Turn
Are you
3,
gonna be able to
Antonio.
activate that? Because if he's not gonna be able to activate that, maybe he's gonna have at least. Oh, dude, this is not what you're looking for. Oh man,
Well,
your
even
lands are
some
gonna go up very, very quickly, and thus far we're not really doing anything with them other than I don't even know. Maybe find some Mishra's Bauble to draw extra cards, or maybe like a Mox Opal, hoping to eventually turn that on. This looks really bad for Antonio right now.
Well, Chris is going to be able to get. There's definitely a few land in hand. So if you're right about the Seeds of Innocence in the night, then he's got things to do. And the land drops are going to come. So we're going to have a real game here, assuming Antonio gets anything. It was, kind of my thought process going into game 3 was, well, okay, that's a wasteland on the Saga on 2. How do you feel about that? I feel like I might have hit the Saga on 1.
I would have considered not hitting anything because there's nothing
Sure.
really coming out of the Saga that I really care about. Like,
Mhm.
this is something I would consider, but yeah, I mean, it's not the worst idea. Like, I guess he was scared there might be like a needle, but I'm not even sure what that needle would name. Like, right now, Chris is. I don't really want to say in the driver's seat because he's also not really doing all that much, but he's at least playing towards something. He's eventually either gonna get down the night, or have another seed if he really needs it.
Mhm.
Antonio, on the other hand, it's kind of hard to see his hand. Maybe there's a Force of Will for the seed, but it's not really sure. So we're gonna float 1 mana here.
2 Sagas going out with no activations for constructs is a little disappointing for Antonio, but really part of the strength of the hand was the Chalice on 1. But really, things have flipped so quickly here. It was like, what is Antonio going to be able to do? And now it's, what is Chris? Oh my gosh! Oh no!
Destruction.
Oh, Chris. This okay. Well, so the way that Saga works is you tutor for a card and it puts into play. So Pithing Needle has no activated ability. It just comes into play, names something, and you can't respond to it. Antonio very cleverly names Windswept Heath, and Chris Bergeson now has no mana sources in play. And this is a pretty stunning turn in the pace of this game. And now Antonio is really
Yeah.
in control.
This heavily turns the game around because all of a sudden, like, not only are those 2 lands basically destroyed, it's also a double time walk almost because Chris
Yeah.
at this point basically missed 2 land drops. It's
Wow.
insane. Like, one way he can come back from this is if he had something like, Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. So all of a
Yes.
sudden they can tap for mana again at least.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there it is. It's still all green mana.
Wow. Okay, so here's a question. Is it possible that Chris Bergeson just baited Antonio into getting
Oh,
Pithing Needle? Because that would be really sick, and it's certainly a possibility.
this is exactly the timeline that I want to be true.
Yeah, I mean if that's very sharp by Chris Bergeson. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, as Julian was saying, and here's Collector Oof, and the swings in the last 90 seconds are incredible.
Oh my god! Oh my god! This is why we play Legacy for. Like, all these tiny little things that are absolutely amazing. Dude, I love this.
Oh,
I wonder what the next episode is gonna bring. Let's see the next one on Antonio's side. We don't even have to wait a week.
Oh, that was very slick. Chris Bergeson gets the Pithing Needle onto the board because Antonio certainly had other things that could have been tutored for. Chooses Pithing Needle to knock down double Windswept Heath, and oh my goodness. 2 Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth in Chris's deck. 1 very clear there. Here's a see this, and now we're back to game 2 again, where Antonio can't do anything. That okay. No, I take there it is. Otawara present this time. There's Dismember for Collector Oof. All right. Well, that's a blow for Chris. However, those Windswept Heaths still work. They may not tap for white, but they still tap for mana. And if Antonio had a wasteland, boy, you know where that would go instantaneously.
The deck usually plays like a Crucible in the sideboard. Not really not that it would matter all too much here because we don't have Wasteland, but maybe that's a thing that you can use to then rebuild with the Urza Sagas, give them a second chance. Oh, and now we're gonna get all those Thopter tokens.
Okay,
Do
so
you think
if
Chris is gonna blow the Seeds of Innocence on this turn?
I think probably. Now these Thopters are not artifacts, correct?
They are. I'm
Are
pretty
they?
sure they're artifacts. I'm
They look
almost
like they are. Yeah, okay, they look like they are. All right, so they will go down also, but the Sai should survive and the Otawara. So Antonio will have a little bit going on, but there's a Force of Will in hand, so
yeah, but I'm
maybe
not sure
Chris
if the
is
other card is a blue card, so you might need to
well,
draw a blue card of this and the Bauble if he blows the Bauble.
okay. Antonio's board is growing. As far as Chris is concerned, this is probably already mildly out of control, and it's just can Seeds of Innocence reel it back in? And the answer may be that that's not going to work. Not
I'm
going to
just
get
like
through.
trying to think about a scenario where you make your seeds uncounterable, but that's not really happening here.
No, I don't think
I
so.
guess the idea is you draw a second seeds.
Yeah, that would do it. I mean, we've already seen Collector Roof. There's a Seeds in hand. There's only 2 in the 75. So that would be fortunate.
To check the top card.
Mm-hmm.
What's it gonna be? Well, Antonio already knows. Maybe a Sylvan Safekeeper, I wasn't sure.
All right. And
Lots of
Sai
supplies, yeah.
in for 1 damage. Not that that matters overly much at this point. Really, the question is, does Antonio have a blue card in hand to go with Force of Will?
Yeah, if this is this is Swords to Plowshare. So if Antonio doesn't have a blue card, we get to Seeds and Swords to Plowshares, the Sai, which
Yeah.
basically resets the entire board. Oh,
Right.
Antonio's like, okay, let me read this. This looks scary.
Now this is, let me read this card and then Force of Will it. Oh, yeah, there's a 5 cards in hand. There's got to be blue cards, right? Yeah, it looks like there is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's.
Yeah. In fact, I think there might be 2 forces. Heartbreak for Chris Bergeson here.
I guess I get one more shot
Yeah.
to rip from the top.
Yeah. Maybe if you're all in on Seeds of Innocence here, maybe you Swords of Plowshares the side before passing the turn.
But you might be right. There's a second Force of Fire. And I
Yeah.
mean, we already talk about the second Force of Fire as if it was a given that Chris is going to rip the one off from stack.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he needs to do here. There's no game plan in the stack that works right now, I would think. Okay, we're gonna sacrifice those 2 artifacts, I guess, to side, draw an extra card. Sure.
Yeah. So maybe Antonio does not have an extra blue card for Force of Will, because that is a significant cost to pay just to draw a card at the start of your turn here. Oh, well, having a replacement Mox would explain it. And that Pithing Needle, I guess, wasn't actually doing anything.
Yeah, makes sense. We're just gonna get rid of the needle then.
Yeah.
So for Antonio, at this point, it's really just the idea is find a force with protection, which we already might just have in the first place, and turn sideways. Because what we have is already good enough to finish the game rather quickly. We don't really need anything extra on top of that. It's really just about finding extra forces.
Yeah, it looks like 6 damage on the board right now. Take a few swings, but Chris isn't mounting any sort of blockers at this point, so
If we're not playing extra artifacts, there's a good chance that we already have like all those forces that we need.
yeah. All right, so 1 summoning 6 token, so actually 5 damage coming in this turn.
Okay, come on. Seeds from the top. Oh, a library.
Okay, well, now that those Windswept Heaths are turned back on, I guess that allows some minor amount of
Manipulation, yeah.
yeah, but the life total is gonna be dropping pretty quickly here.
Yeah, we're probably not gonna get any kind of card advantage out of the library.
No.
Especially since if we are taking 6 this turn, if you have to crack those 2 fetch lands, at
Yeah.
some point it's 8 down to 6. Yeah.
Yep, so it's just gonna be, is there some relevant card in the top 3? And by some relevant card, I think we mean only Seeds of Innocence. That's asking a lot, but it could be there.
I mean, we put it in the deck to draw it.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's absolutely right.
let's see.
Blaststone's not going to do much as it starts at 1. It can't hit zeros. So that's not too effective here, as I'm trying to think of other alternatives. And Chris might have. And 6 damage comes across.
Yeah, and this is just like how you sometimes grind it out with Sai.
Mhm.
I gotta say, I underrated Sai. I used to not be too much of a fan of the card, but this deck really converted me. I'm a believer in Sai now. Oh wow, we're gonna drop a Chalice for 0 to turn off Mox and get another Sai trigger.
Yeah, it's the side trick because that puts lethal damage on the board. So Antonio is going to give that Chalice up in order to basically he's going to trade the Chalice in for a token.
Mhm.
And if he wants to get rid of it
Yes,
later,
you
he
can
can
always
set.
yeah, like you were gonna say, right? You can always
Yeah,
get rid of it with Sai.
yeah. Yeah, in fact, it's going to happen right now.
Doesn't really feel like there's too much going on for Chris other than the hate
Doesn't
cards.
really feel like these players are playing the same format.
Yeah. We get to play Vintage and Legacy. That's what
Yeah.
we call situations like that.
Okay, another Chalice on 0 for another token, and then Antonio drawing. I guess there was a Bauble trigger for this turn.
I mean, that's why you see so many energy fluxes on Magic
Yeah.
Online. This is energy flux. Sometimes you can get there if you have like some random mana lying around that you can use to like keep your Kappa Cannoneer alive for another turn or something. But if you try to beat the deck, it's usually blue decks running energy flux so they can protect it with their own forces. If you're playing a fair deck, I don't even want to say you have to overload on hate cards because at that point it might just not be worth it to fight the deck all that much in the first place. You try to get some value here and there with some hate cards that you have, but yeah, this just like might be one of those games where things didn't work out for Chris, even though he found the second
He
Seeds of
found it.
Innocence.
It's almost unfair that he found it and then Antonio has a Force of Will. You'd rather just not find it and just die,
This is
right?
like the rush of adrenaline where you feel like,
Oh
oh,
my
I actually
goodness.
found it. Oh my god. And
Yeah, you're
yeah,
absolutely your pulse just triples. And Antonio's like, "Oh, look, I have another Force."
just throws it out there. I mean, Seeds of Innocence is a card. I think they should
Oh,
make it uncounterable.
yeah, there it is. All right. So Antonio Zanutto defeats Chris Bergeson and 3 exciting games. Chris drew all the sideboard cards, and Antonio was just able to overcome it, whether through manipulation or force of will to just the dismember and the force of will just gets through and advances to top 8. Congratulations to him.